All right, so let's just review the latest turning point. We've reviewed a number of turning points. This is the latest one we're going to review right here. Right there. Now, what's different from this turning point than the others? Well, I mean, it's not a pullback. This is more of a sideways trade, a range-bound trade where you have an upthrust position. So let's mark it as such. All right, so we know that supply overtook demand here. Right there. Supply overtook demand there, and then demand overtakes supply and comes right back at the prior point of resistance, and supply again overtakes demand there. Okay, so this is the last area where supply overtook demand here, and of course there's some minor points here, but they don't really count. All right, so this is the area of resistance where supply against goes to that area and supply overcomes demand. So now we're going to ask, how did demand get to that area? It came in there in a choppy fashion. It had a breakout and it was a false breakout. So in other words, an upthrust. So that's what you know. Now it's time to look at the lower time frames and try to get confirmations and all that. So we know that as demand was going to that area of resistance, what happened? It accelerated in volume right there. It's very, very, very clear that this volume here is spiking up right here, 94. See that? Look at this. It's bigger than all the greens. So there's a lot of volume here. Now, it could also be a result of a breakout, like at those areas, right? So you want to see what is it? Is it a breakout or is it a climax, right? In my opinion, when you have a market and you have a trend, and the wave that's up here has more volume than all these other waves, chances are it's a climax. Alright, because you have buy low and sell high. Buy low means I'm buying low with a lot of volume. Sell high means selling high with a lot of volume. And here, relatively speaking to the background, you're selling high with a lot of volume. So I'm on edge over here and need some more confirmation. Because what happens is when you have selling on the way up, you also have selling on the way down. They sell on the way up to get the best prices, and until they can't get those best prices anymore, and then they sell on the way down. So here is a clear indication where you have selling on the way up and selling on the way down. So you sell on the way up, selling on the way down. Now, a lot of times, just because they're selling on the way up and selling on the way down, you could just have like a temporary pause. Climax don't necessarily need to end trends. This is a misnomer, it's a misconception. They can pause trends and go into reaccumulation and then continue the trend. So I don't know if this is going to do a trend change. I need to see levels that are broken. The market has to prove itself, because it could climax and then sell off and then go sideways and then continue up, right? So you want to deal with all that? I don't. And the waiting game is a really, it gets long because there's too much up and down, up and down, up and down reaccumulation. It's horrible. So forget all that. All we know is that here the selling comes in. You're selling on the way up, selling on the way down, and then finally you have some lower lows with a minor breakout right here where it says BL. Yeah, that's a breakout. So this is constructive because it takes out this low. And then it's just, maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not on this individual trade, but the edge is in your favor. The other thing to note is this area here, it failed. You see this breakout? After it pulls back to test and makes a lower low, taking out the lows of the rally, this breakout is a clear failure because it was unable to hold at the breakout level and it was unable to hold all the way where it tested the rally. It's unable to hold. So this breakout, these guys are in problem. And it makes low and a lower low. So against this area, the market came back to test. Bank and continued down. So what are the key lessons here? The first is from looking at a levels perspective, right? I mean, obviously the trend matters and all that. Oh, and one more thing. The time of day is extremely important. You see over here it's 8:30 to 8:45ish. A lot of times this around this area is where your traders are there. So because during the day, when is the highest volume? It's in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. So this is where you have traders, beginning of the day and the end of the day. End of the day probably because the daily chart traders, or in the beginning of the day because the day traders, or in others. So these two areas, beginning of the day and the end of the day, that's when the pullback buyers are there. That's when the breakout buyers are there. That's just the way it is. So the traders are there. Volume is there. If you take a look at the volume chart, you'll see it looks like a U, where you have a lot of volume in the beginning of the day and the end of the day. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is the time of day is important. When you have what looks like a quote-unquote signal, it may not work. If it's outside of these, if it's early in the morning, like 2, 3, or 1 o'clock, or I don't know, 4 o'clock, I don't know, because the traders are not there. But here, the traders are there. Okay, this is the prime time. And you see the turning point occurs, and a lower low occurs, and a test occurs, and they sell. And that's it. So time of day is important. The second thing to note is level. Now, what do I mean by level? Do I mean level, excuse me, some VWAP or something like that? No. What I'm talking about is based on a concept. The concept is, where does supply overtake demand and where does demand overtake supply? Supply overtakes demand and demand takes over supply only in two spots. The first is on a breakout and the second is on a pivot, on a turning point. Those are only two spots. So here supply overtook demand. Right there. Where did demand overtake supply? Right here. Where else did demand overtake supply? Right here. Where is it going to? Right that area. Right. So you have to be careful when they come back down here to this. Anyway, side point. So those are the areas I'm looking at, and those are the natural areas. Natural areas of edge, because that's where one side has proven itself over the other side. Supply overtook demand here, supply overtook demand here. Market goes into that same area. It attempts to break out, meaning demand attempts to break out but can't, and reverses here. What does that mean? That means that there's still supply at that area. What else do you know? On the daily chart, there's supply at that area. So it's very, very important, because you have multiple resistance points, and that means that there are traders on multiple time frames at that area. So the pressure is there. Anyway, long story short, you just draw a line. You see it attempts to break out, fails, up thrust, a lot of volume. What happens? A lot of effort, doesn't go up. Instead, you have a reversal. What else is going on? Market goes to that area, exhaust, selling, makes a lower low, test, and breakdown done. All right, thank you all. Bye.